Okay, we're live.
Hi, I'm Mark Unkefer, and I'm here with Dwight Patel, and we're going to do a presentation on putting on a Lincoln dinner, which is one of the important tasks that political parties routinely have to do in order to raise money. Next slide. So we're going to cover a number of topics. We're going to talk about the economics of the dinner, finding a
Mhm.
speaker, the sales process, some of the ways to add additional revenue to the dinner, the sale of a book, advertising sales, VIP receptions, and talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the registration process and program. And then finally, the most important of all, if you want to have another Lincoln dinner, the whole thank you process. Next slide.
Okay.
So this is one that's a really important one to kind of think about at the at the start. Uh, there's a tendency. 50 years ago, $100 a plate dinner was a very profitable undertaking. As meal costs have gone up, it becomes harder and harder. The margins are much tighter. So you want to have the people who used to come back again, but you also want to make money. So we recommend that you focus on sort of the add-on items to a dinner. That is the VIP ticket sales, ideas for sponsorship, having a silent auction, and having a program. These are all additional ways in which you can make money from your dinner. Next slide. So Dwight, why don't you talk a little bit about securing a venue for the dinner? I know
Yeah,
you and I have done this before, and
exactly.
you've been very involved in this part.
Yeah, and I know in Montgomery County, we're kind of stuck with doing a fancy hotel. We don't have like venues where we could do like a large, you know, banquet hall or something like that. So we're kind of stuck with country clubs or hotels. And it's always better to get it either Tuesday to Thursday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are the best days for it. I know Baltimore County's had a lot of success with doing their dinners on a Monday night, and but really, if this is your county's first dinner in a couple of years or something, shoot for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Wednesday is the best of those 3 days. If you can get Wednesday, that's perfect. It's up against our other show, but that's fine.
Well, but it's
Um,
interesting. It's interesting to kind of underscore one of the reasons for that, because sometimes people think about doing Saturdays or Friday nights, and one of the problems is that's already prime time for the hotels or the country clubs to do
yep.
other events. So if you want good pricing, you want to pick one of those weekdays.
Yep. And also, don't forget May, June, your graduation and wedding season. So try to plan accordingly because you don't want to, it's going to be hard to find a venue in those months.
Now,
And
let's talk about negotiating the price, because
yes.
everybody focuses on the plate costs and the meal
Mhm.
costs. But there's some additional costs, aren't there, that you should be careful about getting into the overall
Yeah.
price?
Yes. The audiovisual is a big one. A lot of hotels are now outsourcing AV to outside vendors who charge a premium for use of projectors. So way we've gotten past is we have, if you have your own projector, bring your projector. That saves you a lot of money. If you and all you have to end up, and if you have a screen, or at that point, if you're gonna do a video or something like that, pay for the screens, and build that into your costs. You might want to have a sponsor, an AV sponsor for say $1,000 and get a couple of those, and that will offset your costs for the AVs.
Although, of
Um,
course, the important thing is to negotiate for the price so that
yes,
you're not caught by
absolutely.
surprise. And
And don't take.
also,
And I was saying,
I was
don't
going to
take the
say,
first price they throw at you.
you can certainly get some movement, particularly if you're picking a time when they're not busy. But also take into account the fact that you're going to have to pay sales tax and gratuities. So
Yep.
that's going to add between sales tax and the typical gratuities, it's going to add an extra 30% to your prices.
Absolutely. And that's why you want to sell the VIP reception if you can find a VIP sponsor, because that's really where you start making up the basically the differences on the costs. Uh, and having an open bar, that makes a VIP reception
We'll
VIP.
talk about. Let's move on to the next slide though, because
Okay.
we'll dive deeper into the VIP
Okay.
reception. So this is another one of the areas that Dwight. This has been one of your signature
Yeah.
moves is being able to get a speaker. So tell me about how you get that done.
Okay. Let's use Governor Walker, for example. When we got Governor Walker for the club, I sent them an invite in June asking for every Tuesday to Thursday in the month of September and October. And they got back to us in the middle of September saying, hey, we'll be there October 10th, I think it was. We had Governor Walker. And earlier you put in the request, the better the look. If you can secure a dinner speaker 4 to 5 months out, that's better than having 8 weeks of runway. One of our best dinners we did in Montgomery County was when we had Governor Jim Gilmore and Governor Allen. We knew 4 months ahead of time we were going to have them, and those two dinners is the ones where we kind of broke the bank, where, so to speak, where we had to sell our own seats and the hotel had to prepare more food because we had so
So
many
one of the things that we talk about it is a kind of point to underscore is working with schedulers. So many of the people who you want as a speaker have a dedicated individual who handles the schedule, and they like to work with specific dates. So broadly saying anytime in May or something like that really is not good for a
That is
scheduler.
horrible. You got to be specific. I mean, if you
You may
want to
have
give them every Tuesday, Thursday in May, write those dates down. Do Tuesday, May 4th, Wednesday, May 5th, and so on.
Now, of course, you're juggling a little bit too, which is that you need to have confirmed with your venue that you have
Mhm.
those dates in reserve. So there's a little bit of a chicken and the egg that goes on
Yes,
as well.
absolutely. Yeah. And as for paid speakers, I am against paying for speakers, frankly. We live right outside the nation's capital. Even if you, I mean, we can get great speakers from various think tanks, members of Congress, former members of Congress, former governors, and they still bring in people. I think paying for a speaker, you're really taking a big gamble. Like I know it paid off when Harford County paid for the lady from Turning Point, and they made well on that. But you're not always going to be get that lucky. Sometimes these honorariums go north of 10, 20, $30,000, and many counties make 30,000 on these dinners at the end of the day. You know that your money's all going to go to the speaker at that point. So I would stay away from paid speakers, frankly. Book authors are always
Now,
great.
book
Yeah.
authors are great. One of the things that we do talk about is speaker transportation, and
Hmm.
you may want to make that something that you offer.
Yes.
Again, if you're close to Washington, it can be by car. If you're elsewhere, it may be you have to work on some other way of doing that. But it
Hmm.
does help you make sure that you get the speaker since they don't realize that that cost is not going to be something they pick up. So that may be
Exactly.
a bit of a wrinkle, but is also very helpful.
Hmm.
Next slide.
Sure. Hmm.
So you
And
were talking before 8 weeks was, I think, the absolute minimum. I know
eight,
you like to
yeah,
work
8 weeks
with
is
more
I
time.
actually done it in 6 weeks in Montgomery County. We put these dinners together in 6 weeks in the past, but 8 weeks is good, is ideal. More is always better than less. I think one of the things you need to do is treat it like a project. I know when we were doing dinners, I've always set them up as an agile, safe, agile project planning where you have tasks, you put people in charge, assign, we don't go down to the points where you do story points and all that, but you kind of point out this person's in charge of this person's in charge of ad sales, this person's in charge of laying out your program book, this person's in charge of working with the hotel. It's not really a one-man operation. And then you've got 6 weeks out. You also have to set up a firm deadline, and hold and basically built in 4 days. When you give an ads deadline, built in 4 days. that you can, because you'll get people now probably at the last minute and they won't be able to get you to add on that date. So you built in 4 days for yourself. And we've worked with some great printers who've been able to turn things around within 24, 48 hours. I don't recommend that because you're not going to get that lucky. We get lucky, but don't plan on being lucky. We just lucked out a couple of times.
So this lays out an 8-week thing. One of the things we
Yeah.
really want to emphasize is that first bullet point, that the better the speaker, the more in demand the speaker is,
Yes.
the harder it is to get them to a decision. So you may be spending a lot of time, literally months, waiting for an answer and having to weigh alternative options while you're trying to lay down the speaker. So we'll go in more detail with each of these elements, but I think this gives you a quick overview to the sort of the major thrust of your timeline. Next slide.
Okay, we've got the hold the date information and this is that's very important. Hold the date. You send that out you can send that out via email, but I also postcards are relatively inexpensive to do. It's a cheap, inexpensive investment to get people to get the date. And I know a lot of people like to rely just on emails because we're in the digital age. You can send out an email, but there's a lot of people like our old friend Josephine Wang loved those invitations. She loved the postcard. She would tell me, I got the postcard on my refrigerator. People like physical. I mean, I don't recommend we do the full-blown wedding invitation style that we did in the past, where you do a reply card and send stuff back in. But I mean, a postcard is really good, inexpensive, and you can convey everything you want. You can include a link where people can put the names of everyone that's sitting at their tables.
So it's important to kind of think about it. First of all, we do the hold the date before we've kind of laid out all the various elements, because that will take, we talk about creating a package to sell. So bare bones, you're just saying who the speaker is, when it is, and where the event is, and then following up
we don't even have the event.
that.
We don't even have the event location sometimes. So
Sure.
Date and time.
So then the next piece is coming up with the package, and that is the various price points. And of course, obviously, you're going to have your ticket and your table price, but as we've talked about, the additional add-ons, the VIP, the program book, those are all things that add additional money. So you want to figure out a package that makes sense, that basically incentivizes people to buy a larger or buy a more expensive package.
Exactly.
Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the host committee, because a good way to sell out a dinner is at the wholesale rate. That is, having people whose responsibility it is to sell whole tables rather than selling individual tickets. And you want at the very outset to have a committee. It could be your regular finance committee for the county, or it could be just a specific for that event. But they are responsible to come up with tables. Typically, they will each do 1 or 2 tables themselves. You want to get them invested early on in the process. I really encourage having a face-to-face meeting so you can kind of go through what the elements are and talk about what the strategies are to get different groups or different districts, different towns to participate, and keep them apprised of the progress that you're making on selling. So talk a little bit about some of the lists, Dwight.
Yeah, as in before I want to say also for sponsorships, you want to hit, if you have elected Republicans in your county, hit them up to do a sponsorship. As for lists, you always have a house list. You want to start there. And another thing we've done in the past is we've done digital advertisement in the past. It's kind of gotten a little wonky. I don't recommend it anymore because a lot of the big platforms are going away from ads. Who knows, they may bring them back, but I know we used to do Facebook ads for our dinners in the past. And also, reach out to the women's clubs in your county. They have their own lists of people. Reach out to your Republican clubs and get them all to commit to buying at least one table. And that's really how you fill the room up, is one table at a time. You're not, I mean, selling 1 ticket, 2 tickets here, yeah, that works. But I tell you, you need to have somebody like, I remember in the past, In Montgomery County, you'd have the various, like Chevy Chase would have 2 to 3 tables. Josephine Wang herself would put 2 to 3 tables together. I would do 4 to 5 tables. That's really where you're going to make the money on your dinner is the table sales, frankly.
Good. Next slide.
Okay. Designing
So
the
we talked a
flyer.
little. We talked a little bit about the flyer already. One of the most frustrating things after a dinner is when you run into somebody who shoulda, woulda, coulda been at
Hmm.
your dinner and tells you, "Gee, nobody told me about it. I didn't
Yep.
know. I didn't hear. I didn't know about the date." So you really need, as we've already talked about, some of the strategies of reaching
Hmm.
out to multiple venues to let people know that
And
the dinner's taking place.
and one thing you don't want to do is send a PDF file with you want to send an HTML version email. You can attach a PDF. Uh, Put a physical link. Don't just do a QR code because a lot of people don't like the QR codes because that means you got to have a phone. You got to take it and you got to fill out all the information on your phone, which is kind of a pain. Like I will take that if there's only a QR code, I will take that. I'll copy that, bring email it to myself so I can do it online, do it on the desktop. Uh, in the flyer, put in your ads rates and remember when you do ads, you only have one inside cover, one inside back cover, one back cover. I know Anne Arundel County in the past, they've sold their front cover as well. And when you're doing that, you want to make those the more premium stuff. You can get away with charging $500 to $1,000 for those, depending on the county you're in. But and do a 8.5 by 11. Do a full size program. Don't do the small programs. People feel they're getting gypped when they're paying $500 and they get a half page ad. Basically, is what that is.
So one of the things we talked about, and you mentioned not
Hmm.
using PDF, having HTML, is to make the RSVP process really simple.
Hmm.
That is the online payment where people put in their credit card information. Uh, because you have these multiple things that are people, you have a VIP or
Hmm.
you have multiple ticket sales or what have you. You need to track what the payments are for. So give
Hmm.
those people the options and then lay them out.
And very
You have some.
important. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Also, very important if your county is not using Anodot, use Anodot. They've got a great events function. We just use that for our club's Christmas party. People are about allowed to put in what they're bringing, but you could do that for a dinner. Who's sitting at your table? What kind of do they have any dietary restrictions? Kosher, vegetarian? Would they like the fish or the chicken? You name it, you can do it, and that puts everything in a nice Excel spreadsheet. You can download it, and that's really important for later on. But I just wanted to do that plug for the Anodot for tracking
So,
purposes.
so, so one of the things in the RSVP process will be you'll have people who are selling tables and they're
Mhm.
collecting payments and then turning that in, and then some of the people at their table will choose to pay directly. So having a good tracking mechanism where you're
Mhm.
sharing information as the sales as they come in is really handy because it communicates to those members of the host committee or the finance committee that are selling tables where they stand and who's in and who's out.
And when you
That
do those forms for online, make sure you have a field where you can say, I'm sitting at John's table or I'm sitting with Mary Beth, so you can basically track because you don't want people getting very mad because they're sitting with the wrong person at the dinner. You don't want that.
it's actually a real selling point for people who are returning to a dinner again, or maybe even
Hmm.
getting started, is to know who they're sitting with, what table they're sitting at, and they feel that they quote unquote know somebody at the dinner and that they're going to be with friends. Now, this is an important issue. Call list. On top of everything else,
Hmm.
uh, your host committee members and others on the committee can share with the chairman, and the chairman should know themselves, a list of people that they follow up with directly. People like to hear from the chairman. They like to be asked by the chairman. And this is really a key to get larger contributions. It's also useful for those contributors or potential contributors that a chairman have been working on for a while and maybe in touch with. This is how shall I say, the harvesting season where some of that good work that has already taken place can bear
Yeah.
fruit.
Exactly. And a vice chairman is no substitute for the chairman. You need to make the calls. Your committee members need to make the phone calls.
Next slide.
Yep.
So we've
Yep.
already talked about the invitation. I think we got a little ahead of ourselves on this,
Mm-hmm.
the invitation versus postcard. The postcard is really handy. It can get the date out. It doesn't have, it is considerably less expensive relative to the formal invitation. Email
Mm-hmm.
blasts. We talked about the shareable file. I think that's actually your HTML
Yep.
recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
And then also VIP invites. Make sure that your office holders and other people from around the state are aware of the event, because one of the secret sauces for a lot of successful dinners is their ability to attract people from outside the county to come in. I think we've handled this already. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, speakers. You want to do a press release. You need to get it approved by the speakers. Also one thing we forgot to mention, when you design the invitation, make sure whoever you're talking to at your speaker's office gets some. They usually don't care, but they let them, out of courtesy, let them see the invite when it's completed. Just like the press release, let them see the press release before you send it out.
And they're
Basically,
usually very not finicky, but they do want to know what the bio is. So
exactly.
give your speaker the opportunity to provide the bio.
Mhm.
Sometimes, depending on the position that the speaker is in, they may be slightly less political or slightly less partisan.
Mhm.
There's a nuance to how they want to handle that.
Yeah, it's kind of like we had when we had Governor Allen speak. I know we were going back and forth. Do we use the last title he had? And we basically just asked his office. They said he prefers governor to senator, and that's what we're going with. But so, I mean, those are little things, but you do need to pay attention to those things. Creating a Facebook event page is very important these days. You get the, and I'd even recommend not only do Facebook, also tweet out that you got this dinner, and in that tweet, put a link to where they can get more information about the dinner so they can buy tickets online.
Next
Online
next slide.
payments.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think we've captured that. Yeah.
okay.
Just remember online payments that you do have to capture the information that you provide to
Mhm.
campaign finance. So
Yes. Otherwise,
sometimes
your treasurer is going to be really mad at you if they have to make calls and getting
right.
occupations and all that other stuff. So, anyways, the ad flyer needs to be created, and that's really easy if you've done this in the past. And we will have on Republican Toolbox samples of ads flyers where you could just, it's got recommended pricing, and you can always change those as you see fit. And you can. And I used to always do like a carpet bombing tactic. I've got I would send it to everyone and have them all share it with other people. Realtors are really good to buying ads in program books, uh, as are restaurants and so on. And make it very easy for them to send you the ad. Create like a way they can just attach an email, and tell them what format you need the ads in. So that way you're not having to recreate the ad or you can't open the ad. So recommend they send it to you as a JPEG, PNG, or a PDF format. That is the best way to do it because you can just cut and paste, drop those in to where you need them.
And of course, we have some of the content. We already talked about the speaker bio. Your
Mm-hmm.
chairman is going to do a greeting. You're going to have a menu and schedule of the evening. And this is your program book is also a great opportunity to recognize the other members of the central committees. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
Republican office holders. Number two, clubs. Number
Host committee
three,
members. Yeah.
host committee members should certainly be recognized, and also some of your award winners for some of the
Mm-hmm.
prizes and acknowledgments that you have. So that's all content that could go into the book. We in Montgomery County back in the day used to list all the precinct chairs, so
Mm-hmm.
200 and something or other
We also used
precinct
to
chairs.
list all of our Century Club members. That was like several pages right there.
Right. So members of, if you've got a donor club, say recurring donors, people like to see the name. Just a pro tip, if somebody is entitled, make sure they're listed because boy, will you hear from it if you get that list wrong.
Yes, exactly.
Next slide. Next slide.
Mm-hmm. Here we are.
So selecting an MC for the dinner, I am a big proponent of having one person who's able to keep things moving. There's sometimes a desire to kind of spread the wealth around and have multiple people introduce or speak at different acts.
Yeah, they try to do the
The,
Academy Award style.
that's a great way to describe it. But the challenge with that is that everybody sort of feels like it's their chance in the sun, and they end
Yes.
up stretching a little bit. So having one MC for the dinner makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
There are also sort of the program elements, national anthem speaker, invocation, pledge of allegiance. Speaker's introduction is a really important one.
Hmm.
I will tell you, I once had a vote of the Central Committee on the issue of national anthem speaker because I think we'd already invited person A and a number of committee members thought it should be person B, and it got contentious. So this is not something you can take for granted. One of the issues is color guard. That could be for a real patriotic moment. Obviously, they need to have the appropriate connections to be able to get somebody to come and do it. Something that Dwight, I'll turn to Dwight about this, but
Yeah.
in the last couple of years, you've done a great job of elevating a lot of the dinners by doing video tributes and photographics. So, what are your thoughts about
Yeah,
that?
I think it's great because one, we have all these events over the years, from Super Saturdays to Get Out the Vote rallies to other events, like we did those monthly meetings and so on. People like to see themselves on the big screen. It's kind of like that's why I like doing the video. You tie it in with music. We've done this for the state party for a number of years. People love seeing themselves on the big screen. Everybody wants to be in the show and they see themselves on the big screen. It's kind of like when I first ran for office in high school for student council. You get a big thrill when you see your name on something larger than a report card. Same thing. You see your picture, something larger than a phone or a tablet or an 8.5 by 10 picture somewhere. It's a big thrill.
So,
And doing
minute by
one of the
minute, yeah,
shows, yeah.
yeah, minute by minute, break it out as to when you want things to happen
Hmm.
and how it will happen. You want to leave enough time. It takes a while for people to get settled and into their table. They're always going to chit chat and what have you. Um, but if you want to end on time, you're going to need to think through when things are. But you're also going to need to give yourself time for contingency because if a speaker comes late,
Yes.
you're going to end up having problems with VIP. I,
Yeah,
I,
and
I,
this is before your time. Jean Kirkpatrick was 45 minutes late when she came.
oh, I have a worse story of that. I did a dinner with Rudy Giuliani in Brooklyn. This is 30 plus years
Yeah,
ago, 30 years ago, and he showed up for dessert, which certainly made our VIP photographs a bit of a challenge.
yeah.
So
Uh,
that is an issue in your minute by minute is to realize that you have a general reception going on, but you're also having your VIP, and if you're having photograph, you need to plan for the number of clicks you're going to be able to
and
do
also
that.
in the video when you're doing the photographs, make sure you have somebody there that basically rushes people out, so they
Right.
don't
We'll
stand
talk
in the.
about that, I think, next. But one of the
Okay.
issues too is just the timing um, of when the speaker speaks.
Mhm.
Either after dinner, sometimes before dinner, you may need to work that out. And frankly, you also may end up having to adjust to sort of changes in the speaker's own schedule. So you need
Exactly.
to have some flexibility there. Sorry, next slide.
Hmm.
We haven't talked a lot about silent auctions, and they're a great source of revenue, aren't they, Dwight?
Hmm. Yes, they are, and it's so easy to get some great stuff. I know when we've done silent auctions, Governor Ehrlich has always been very generous, offering lunch with Governor Ehrlich. That was always a big ticket item. We'd have people that would donate their vacation homes, another big items. Alcohol, political memorabilia, not as popular as I thought, but people still do like the political memorabilia. Uh, but the alcohols, the vacations, and the gift cards, and the lunches with various folks. I know in the past we've had a lunch with Morton Blackwell. We, I think, also had a lunch with Neil Parrott in the past, and people like having lunch with somebody that they don't see every single day, and people will pay. I mean, I know we had Bob Ehrlich offer lunch with him. Somebody paid over $500 to have lunch with Bob Ehrlich.
So, important point is to have your committee work on setting up bid sheets, and I would
Yes,
put in a definite, clear minimum bids. I think it's potentially embarrassing for people to underprice what an item is worth. So set a reasonable minimum bid,
exactly.
sort of close to the actual retail value. And also, you mentioned some of the higher ticket ones, like the trips or vacation.
Hmm.
Those are things that really tend to need a long-term decision. So if you publicize the silent auction in advance, say in an email, people coming to the
Hmm.
dinner, you can get people perhaps a little bit more energized to bid.
And another thing is lunches. You can go to local businesses that will offer up, a lunch, at their establishment. I know Clyde's has always been really good to us over the years. Uh, yeah,
Next slide.
yeah.
All right. What happens in the
Okay.
last couple days? What happens? I've noticed this is a recurring thing for
Yeah.
events, which is it's a 1 week out, and
Right.
you're at about, if you're lucky, 70% of your 60% of your
Yeah.
desired sales total, and you're about to panic. So should you panic?
No, because a lot of people pay the very last week, or as they hear from other people, hey, I'm going. Oh, maybe I should buy a ticket. Maybe I'll go too. And I know we had that with Governor Gilmore. We had about 130 tickets sold, and our grand total was, I think, Governor Gilmore was around 310. Was the and because we had so many people that just walked in, and I know that was driving our friend Katja crazy, who's doing registration, but it's a good problem to have. A very good
So
problem to have.
you do want to maximize this last minute period. So this is
Yes.
you want to be in communications with the members of that dinner, host, finance committee
Hmm.
members. You're going to be sharing information with them about who has bought, but also
Hmm.
by process of elimination, who hasn't. You may have committee tables that were promised from clubs or districts that haven't come in yet. So you're going to want to. You may have partial tables, only a couple seats have been sold. So look for the holes and communicate that with your committee so they can have enough time to go out and follow through and complete their sales.
Very true.
Now, another area is this last minute thing. We've talked about having this pecking order of items. This is an opportunity for upsales. So somebody who's sitting at a table that's been put together by somebody else, they may be a great candidate for VIP. And that's somebody,
Hmm.
that could be an increase in sale. I mentioned again the chairman's call list. Here is another opportunity to put together a list that the chairman's responsible for making those phone calls to do follow up. Now, you also need to communicate with people who've attended in the past, and that's kind of a good side by side of looking at people who've been participants in the last 2 years to figure out why they haven't come yet, and also identify who may be the best person to reach out to them. And I would think I already mentioned, why don't newcomers come? It's because they think they won't know anybody there and they won't be welcomed. And so, having some intermediaries from your various committees reach out to them is really helpful. Next slide.
Hmm.
And here we are at the VIP reception, Dwight. So you tell us about how to run them.
Okay, one VIP reception. You would have a watchdog at the door, because if you don't, you'll have every Tom, Dick, and Harry jumping into VIP. Put an identifier on their name tags. Make sure there's someone there that sees the gold star or whatever you have, the Maryland flag, American flag, whatever you have. They know, so they're VIPs. The wristbands are nice, but they're not as visible as something right on their name tag because everyone's got the name tag on. But wristbands are nice, but you can pass a wristband around. It's kind of hard to pass around Mark Unkerfer's name badge with a VIP sticker to somebody who's not
Right.
Mark Unkerfer, Uh, and basically, once you get in there, you want to make sure that no one person is monopolizing the time of your speaker. We had that issue once. We had Mike Lee speak for one of our Reagan dinners, where we had a particular guest that was just she spent like almost 20 minutes with the speaker, and you kind of had to pry her away with, to get
Right.
her away so other people can also spend time. And that's really important. Nothing irritates people that have paid $250, $300, $400, $500 for a VIP ticket to have no time with the speaker.
So
Uh,
moving them through the process is there's a move with the
yep.
elbow to be able to move people through the process.
Mhm.
You do want to keep track of who is being photographed in what order.
Exactly.
You may think you know everybody, but what you don't want to have is a couple of photographs where you're not quite sure who the person is, and these are people who
Yep.
maybe the first time they've gone to a dinner could be coming again and again in the
Yeah.
future, but they need to be identified.
Because you know what I say, if you don't give somebody their picture, they get very upset.
So
You
that is
know.
the very bottom line point, isn't it? Is to make sure the photographs get to the attendees and get
Yes.
to the attendees in a timely manner.
And the best way to do it is just have a number as you're going through. In number one, put the picture so you know who's won and so on, because it'll be in the chronological order of the way the pictures have taken.
Right.
And have a good photographer. Don't let your century member who just bought a DSLR think he can be the photographer. You need somebody that actually can do a good job with these things. And again, the photo line has to be kept moving. You can't monopolize the time of the speaker when you're getting a picture there. That person that monopolized Senator Lee's time also did the same thing when she got her picture with him.
Yes.
So
Anyway,
keep the photo line
keep
moving and make sure the photographer gets to all the attendees in the photographs. That's very important.
next slide.
Yep.
Laying out the table. Now there used to be something called the dais,
Yeah.
big group on the top. That is very much out of fashion. So today we have table one, which is a head table. It actually could be, depending on what the hotel or country club can do, it could be a little larger venue. But you want to put key people that you
Big
can
donors.
recognize, big donors, perhaps the person who was instrumental in getting your speaker to come
Mhm.
participate there. And Also, I'd like to put members of the host committee and finance committee, those people who are really instrumental in selling tickets, in the tables directly around the head table. And also print out, at least for the head table, you may want to even identify who sits where, a little kind of old school or old fashioned. You don't need to do that at other tables, but at the head table, you can want to be able to do that. And name tags. This is always very helpful to include so people can identify who they are. But we'll talk about that in the sign-in process. Next,
Mhm.
registration.
Registration. Yeah.
You
You
want
need
to
to have
take
four to
this
six
one?
people. Yeah, you need to have 4 to 6 people there for the dinner of 300. I've seen it done right. I've seen it done very wrong. And make sure all the chairs laid out. Take it to the hotel hours before. And I don't mean an hour. I mean you need to be there at least. If your dinner's at 6, you need to have your people there at 1 o'clock to start setting that stuff. You don't want to go to it. Nobody likes being at a dinner where they're still organizing the name tags when you get there. And alphabetically according to last name, not first name, last name. That way.
So you and I think both have had some war stories where this information was printed out the wrong way, and it
Mhm.
is nothing short of catastrophic not to have that information in
Yeah.
a way in which you can get your hands on easy and in
Mhm.
timely manner.
And you want to separate the lines, people that have paid and people that are paying at the door. Nothing is more irritating than when you come up there and they go, "Oh, I have, the person gets a name tag, but they haven't paid, and nobody." And many times, a lot of so you need to separate that so you can, kind of because it takes longer for them to write a check, run a credit card, whatever it is. It takes a little longer, so have two separate lines for paid and unpaid. And
And
basically assign people at doors, telling them where the tables are. Be prepared for definitely last minute walk-ups. And we've had two, maybe three, four dinners that were like that we've done over the years where people just show up. I remember we used to do the golf tournaments. We'd have maybe 10 teams, but we'd have over 100 people just show up for the dinner. So,
So I know some counties have liked to have a cutoff in advance. I would
mhm,
always, I personally come down against that because I think if you're flexible enough in your systems, you can accommodate the walk-ins. And
yeah,
when you don't let them in, you're really leaving money on the
yeah,
table that you might otherwise gonna get. Your clubs and hotels will typically have a couple days before the dinner have a basically a head count, a minimum.
mhm,
You want to price it so you don't have to pay for extra food that you're not going to use. That said, I've found that hotels and country clubs can be
mhm.
accommodating for, say, an extra 10%, whatever that number is, or 5 to 10%,
Yeah,
that can easily accommodate a number of walk-ins.
and that's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have. I'm very pleased to say that I've had dinners where my seat went
Mhm, yep,
because we had too many walk-ins and I just couldn't have dinner.
yep. And basically, make sure banners and signs are at the hotel. Audio visual needs, test the venue. I know for us, we usually go in a day ahead or earlier the same day to test everything, make sure the mics are working, the audio, and also don't fret too much if the audio's not the best quality. People are there to have a good time, and you can, mm, you know, you can let some stuff, if the audio's not great quality, remember you don't own the audio, so it's, just something to know. Uh, and the traffic flow, I think we do it best when we put the food right next to the silent auction stuff. So as you go to get the food,
Or the bar,
yes, well, that's usually where you have the food and the bar
right?
within the same general area.
And
And
we haven't made the point too that you want to have a cash bar for the general reception, but you
yeah,
want to have a complimentary bar for the
mhm.
VIP reception.
And the
Um,
VIP should be far as possible from your general reception.
and
And
be
basically,
there well ahead of time so you can check to make sure the layout looks right.
yep, exactly.
So we've gone through the program. We talked about it before. We talked about
Yep.
the issue of the timing of the principal
Hmm.
speech. You may have a general idea, but you may have to be flexible. Very tricky to do the list of VIPs to be recognized. If you have lots of office holders, you're going to want to know that. One of the ways is have a good volunteer at the check-in table to handle that and is knowledgeable about it and can put together a list and share that information. So you have people who are kind of on the same level of pecking order position.
Hmm.
One is recognized and the other isn't. You want to avoid that. One of the issues with programs sometimes is they want to put, the suggestion is to put awards up. I tend to think not, but I will tell you there are lots of people who disagree with me on that and want to
Hmm.
recognize volunteers there. I'm of the view that you kind of have a busy program as it is, that it really takes away from the overall program because you kind of gets very busy. Others say it's a great way to attract people to the dinner because they're going to be recognized. So it's six one way, half a dozen the
It's
other.
what works. It's what works for your county. You
Right.
know.
And then you go through a couple of steps with promoting the silent auction. You're going
And
to
by the
want
way,
to be,
yeah,
go
shout
ahead.
out to PG County. They do this the best way. Like the best item, they'll do a live auction. And I know they've gotten a lot of money. I remember one year they were auctioning off a bottle of wine, and I think they got up to a crazy amount, like $600-700 on the bottle of wine.
Right. Go ahead. Next one.
Mhm.
And this is one of my favorite slides because this is, remember, you want people who went last year to come this year, and you want people who came this year to
Mhm.
come next year. So you're going to, in the process, handle a lot of the thank yous. As much as possible, you want to distribute your silent auction items that night,
Mhm.
and that means collecting money that night as well. You want to get the name tags back. You want to take your signs and banners and take them back. And you want to make sure, again, as I mentioned, the supplies. You have a whole list of thank yous to do. I've got a list there from the host committee, the volunteers, silent auction donors, the speaker, um, various VIP receptions. We talked about getting the photographs back. And remember, at least in Maryland, you do have a requirement to get donor acknowledgments out. So that will be kind of a natural way to include a thank you as well for participating in the event. What have I missed there, Dwight?
No, that's about it. And do your thank yous right away. Especially if you've got somebody that was a table sponsor, various sponsors, let them know that you appreciate what they've done for them early on.
All right.
Okay.
I think that
And we're
concludes
done.
our presentation. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.